So not long ago, might have just been a week or two ago, or a little while ago, I made a video about how Arkansas had passed a law to put the Ten Commandments up in every classroom in the state. And there was a lawsuit that was filed over it. And a federal judge said this is totally unconstitutional and you can't do this. And it's the same thing that's happened in Louisiana. That decision has been upheld by an appellate court. There's been a lawsuit in Texas, and a federal judge, I think I talked about this last week, a federal judge said it's unconstitutional. So right now, the 10 commandments in school people are 0 for 3. Okay, so in Arkansas, here's what's really interesting. When the judge, his name is Timothy Brooks, when he weighed in on the Arkansas case, what he did is he had to come up with a decision to act quickly because school is starting now. Arkansas passed a law to put the 10 commandments in every classroom. Well, school is starting up. What should all these school districts do? And the lawsuit was happening. And the judge said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a really quick decision right now. It's a preliminary injunction. I'm going to say it's unconstitutional, but it only applies to the districts that are being sued right now. And there were only a handful of them being sued. What about the law itself? Is it unconstitutional? Is it illegal across the state? For that, we need an actual ruling from the judge, but that takes some time. So the bottom line is where we're at in Texas and in Arkansas is that the judges have issued preliminary injunctions that only apply to the school districts that were specifically named in the lawsuit. So in the case of Arkansas, and I don't think I covered this when I talked about the judge's decision because it happened afterwards, but in Arkansas, the church-state separation groups that filed the lawsuit, the ACLU of Arkansas, the ACLU National, the Freedom from Religion Foundation, Americans United for Separation of Church and State, they sent a letter to all the other school districts in Arkansas basically saying, hey, I don't know if you saw this, but a judge has ruled in our favor about the 10 commandments. Now, this decision, I'm summarizing this letter, but they said this ruling only applies to the districts named in the lawsuit. However, based on what the judge wrote, the law is clearly illegal. It's unconstitutional. So this letter says we are encouraging you when school starts up, do not put up 10 commandments posters because this judge is absolutely going to make you take them down. And if you put them up, we might have to sue you as well. Okay, so that's what this letter says. It's a long version of what I just said. So look at the last paragraph here. In light of the court's ruling that the Arkansas law is plainly unconstitutional, any school district that implements the law will be violating the First Amendment and could be inviting additional litigation. We thus urge you to respect the First Amendment rights of Arkansas students and families by not implementing the statute. So don't put up the 10 commandments. It would be bad. It would be a bad idea. The law is going to be illegal. We're just waiting for the judge to say as much for all the rest of you, right? That makes sense. And all the ACLU is doing in that letter is saying, we've already gone after these districts and we won. You're next if you try doing this. So we're just giving you a heads up. Don't do it. Well, guess what happened after they sent that letter? By the way, in a normal world where everyone followed the laws, including Republicans, the state of Arkansas would have sent that letter to all these school districts saying, hey, you know that law that we passed in the legislature a little while ago? Apparently, a judge says it's unconstitutional, so we don't want you to get sued, so don't do that thing. That's what a responsible state would have done. But this is a state run by Sarah Huckabee Sanders. So, of course, they didn't do it. So the ACLU and those church state separation groups had to do it. Anyway, guess what happened? In one particular school district, the Conway School District, they did it anyway. Here's a picture of the 10 commandments in a classroom. And it's not the only picture we have. They did it in another classroom as well. And so now we have proof that the school district put up the 10 commandments in violation of the law. So what happens at this point? Because this school district was not being sued. It wasn't part of the original lawsuit, but they are now in session and they are now breaking the law. And by the way, in a letter to that district's principals, the district's lawyer told everybody, hey, the judge's orders only apply to the 4 school districts specifically mentioned, not ours. That's what their lawyer said to all the school's principals. So here's where it gets interesting, and this is what I had to share with you. I was so excited to share this with you because in the span of 1 week, here's what happened. The church-state separation group sent that letter. They found out that this one school district is putting up the 10 commandments anyway. They went back to the judge and said, hey, you know how we sued you on behalf of those, the parents and their kids in these 4 school districts? Can we make an edit to our lawsuit and toss in one more school district? And normally a court would say, you already filed the lawsuit. You can't just add more people to it in the middle of this. But basically the argument from the church-state separation side was that, well, listen, we have new plaintiffs, new parents and their students, and they did not realize their district was going to violate the law until their kids began the school year and they saw the Christian signs. So we literally could not have included these people until the school year started. And by the way, these parents did ask the school district to take down the posters, and the administrators said no. And so they tell the judge all of this, and the judge says on a Wednesday, I think of last week, he says, fine, I will give you permission to amend your lawsuit. We'll go back in time. You amend your lawsuit and you include the people we are talking about. And so the church-state separation groups amend their lawsuit and they say, yeah, we're representing all these people in the white. And by the way, everything I've highlighted here are our new plaintiffs and their kids. And by the way, in addition to the 4 school districts, we're also suing the Conway School District. So they submit this revised lawsuit. That was on a Wednesday. I'm sorry, I should rephrase that. The judge gave them permission on Wednesday to redo their lawsuit. On Thursday morning, they submit this. And one of the things they mentioned in this lawsuit that I really thought was interesting, because it's a copy paste from what they submitted earlier, but they have some new details about the Conway School District. And they say that one parent emailed the school board as soon as she saw the 10 Commandments poster in her kid's classroom, and she said it should be taken down. And a board member named Trip Leach responded, to answer your question, no, I do not think I will. I do not agree with you at all, but I'm glad to hear you had a great time at the open house. Like, what dickish behavior? And they document it all. And so on Thursday night, the night they submit this, guess what the judge says? The judge hears he says, hey, you know how I issued a preliminary injunction that applied to everybody, to those 4 school districts? In this case, let me show you what he said. If I could find it. Here we go. Check this out right here. It was a 4-page ruling the judge issues on Thursday night. Having reviewed the above factors, the court finds that the requirements, blah, 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 Conway plaintiffs, there we go. Conway plaintiffs are identically situated to the original plaintiffs. They advance the same legal arguments, assert the same constitutional injuries, and request the same relief. And so earlier in August, we said, hey, those 4 school districts cannot put the 10 Commandments up because that would be violating the First Amendment rights of everybody. Since Conway School District was not named in the preliminary injunction, they put up 10 Commandments posters anyway. And look at this. Conway plaintiffs, like the original plaintiffs, have demonstrated that this district is violating the Establishment Clause. Further, it's likely that displaying the 10 Commandments in public school classrooms violates those families' constitutional rights by 1, usurping the parents' parental authority to direct their kids' religious upbringing and education, and 2, subjecting the kids to religious doctrine and beliefs in a way that conflicts with what their families want. And 3, sending a message to kids that they do not belong in their own school community because they do not subscribe to the state's preferred religious doctrine. And 4, they're religiously coercing the children by pressuring them to observe, meditate on, venerate, and follow the state's favored religious text, and to suppress expression of their own religious beliefs and backgrounds. Oh my God. So because Arkansas's law is likely to violate these people's constitutional rights, this judge says it's illegal there too. So basically, it is therefore ordered. Is this all legalese? It's kind of legalese. The long story short of it, the judge says, you know what I said to those 4 school districts? It applies to you too. I love it. So we're still waiting for a final ruling from this judge as to what all these school districts across the state should be doing. But we know for a fact that one school district decided to put up the 10 commandments. The church-state separation groups jumped in to say, we're suing you too. And the judge immediately said, yeah, I'm saying you can't do this either. And so here's the question. Who else wants to try? Who else wants to get sued over this? Or do all of you just want to listen to the church-state separation groups and wait for the judge's decision before you decide what to do, whether or not to follow this law? So thank goodness for this judge for realizing how quickly they needed to act on this. I mean, it's just another reminder that these religious laws are not getting traction in any court. Okay? This is a warning. Do not play politics with the Constitution. And a district, their staff, their administrators, they should be focused on making sure kids get the best possible education. And all the places putting up these 10 commandments signs, they are getting distracted from doing their actual job because they're so obsessed with promoting state-sponsored religion. Like, don't gamble with taxpayer dollars by getting sued over something you can avoid. So look, lesson learned here. If you're in Arkansas, if you're a school district in Arkansas, if you defy this judge, you will be dragged into this lawsuit too, and you will lose. So just listen to the church-state separation groups that actually know what they're doing. Don't listen to the Christian nationalist zealots running the state government, right? The Constitution doesn't bend to Christianity. The courts, thankfully, so far, are not either, at least in this case. So don't listen to the people who are trying to get you sued. So some happy ending on this. We're still waiting for the judge's final ruling. All right, what questions we got here? They elected a felon. The conservatives here only care about law when they can weaponize it for their own agendas. I know. That's why it's heartening when good people win these lawsuits, when judges actually take the Constitution seriously. It's why groups should oppose all of Trump's judicial nominees that he's making. It's very disturbing what they're doing to the law right now. Christians can bend it however they want, it seems. And again, all of these 10 commandment laws, it's all the goal of it is not to put the 10 commandments in schools. The goal is to get sued over it and keep appealing until it gets to the Supreme Court, at which point they're hoping the Supreme Court will say the 10 commandments in schools are legal. That's their long-term plan here. But right now they're getting no traction, and these judges are not ambiguous about saying this is bullshit. You can't do anything close to this, which makes it a lot harder to find. If you have no sympathetic judges, it's a lot harder to get even this Supreme Court to look at your case. What I think is weird here is from confirmation to bar mitzvahs, all the big religions don't force the commandments on children because they are children and not responsible. Yeah, and again, most of the commandments are BS anyway. If you want to force your religion on people, there are more effective ways to do it. There's a reason you don't see the 10 commandments in churches, because why would you do that? They're BS. There are better ways to get people to convince you, like having a youth pastor play guitar. That's more effective than the 10 commandments. But again, this is about merging their religion with the state. It's not about helping kids. Isn't Arkansas near the bottom of ratings for their education system? I mean, I know Oklahoma has it worse, but I don't know where Arkansas is off the top of my head.